Monsanto, the World Health Organization, potentially carcinogenic, benzene, Roundup, glyphosate. Numerous national and international agencies reviewing glyphosate expose all their findings and data sets to anyone so they can be corrected. It's called peer-reviewed. European Food Safety Authority and the Environmental Protection Agency review each other's work and allow you to review their work. No such record of deliberations are available in certain published groups under the World Health Organization. Even when the World Health Organization agrees with the European Food Safety Authority or the Environmental Protection Agency on the safety or lack thereof for glyphosate, they still defend their little subgroup that's independent of them when they come to a completely opposite opinion. These monographs done by the IARC are done by a small number of people who are the only ones who have declared glyphosate to be a probable carcinogen. This classification relied entirely on the conclusion that there was sufficient evidence through animal carcinogen testing, because the human epidemiological evidence contradicted it or wasn't strong enough, meaning it showed a negative correlation to humans and a slight positive correlation to animals. I'll be reading that in a while, and the funny thing of where they got that from and why they ignored the other parts of the conclusions. Some outside observers are selected and allowed to witness proceedings, but they're banned from talking about it. They're placed under gag order. IARC does not encourage participants to retain working drafts of documents after the monograph has been published. And the reason for that is sometimes the working drafts or all information contradict entirely what their conclusions are. And one of their excuses was, well, we've got this working draft here, and it came from a group that didn't publish their information completely. But they cut and pasted the same information and just put in a different conclusion. Meaning they were willing to use their information as the lead up to their conclusion, but refused to publish or even indicate the information source as being contradicting their conclusion. IARC members expressed concern after being approached by various parties asking them to justify scientific positions in the monograph process, not the drafts. The drafts actually show that this IARC group contradicted the drafts. The drafts aren't in question, it's your conclusion, but they spun it around the other way. They portray anybody, scientist or otherwise, that questions their evaluation or simply asks for the information they use to come to it as being motivated by pro-industry bias. And I'm going to read verbatim what they said to cause that response there. In 2014, an American statistician scientist, Christopher Portier, was the chair of one of their committees, and it proposed to review glyphosate in the first place. He was then a special advisor to the same panel later on that got to do the work to create it, to cause it to be declared a probable carcinogen. During that same week they published that opinion, he then signed a lucrative contract to act as a litigation consultant for a law firm that then used this work to sue somebody, Monsanto, on behalf of glyphosate cancer victims that had contacted him in 2014 before he made the suggestion. But this isn't one or two people deep with layers of 3 degrees of separation. This is a single person starting off with the presumption he's going to end up being a special counsel or a special person to do a cancer lawsuit, participating in the group that created the evidence that was used in the court case. That's not several degrees of separation. That is a straight, direct, steel-bolted radial line between two people, between a group of people and this guy fixing results. But they didn't fix results. The IARC panel highlighted certain positive results from rodent studies. ignored any contradicting negative results in the same studies or results that showed that there was no correlation. If the majority of cases show no correlation and a tiny minority show some correlation, it'd be nice to know what it was about. So I'm going to tell you what it was as best I can find because, well, anyway, inappropriate statistical tests made the data look more impressive and more of a carcinogen. American statistician, scientist Christopher Portier was involved. Remember that, please. Interim report produced by the animal subgroup during the working group meeting concluded that there was limited evidence of animal carcinogenity for humans and animals, and the original draft found little animal evidence that glyphosate could cause cancer. And negative conclusions about glyphosate leading to tumors was either deleted, literal proof that it had nothing to do with it, was deleted or replaced with neutral or even opposing views, just thrown in. 10 times, apparently. It underwent significant editing to remove null results, strengthen positive conclusions, or change negative conclusions to positive ones. The IARC working group chairman was aware of new data showing no link between glyphosate and cancer in humans as of the same year. For IARC Monograph 112, for instance. When asked whether or not this is really something he said, he refused to answer. Remember that they're all under gag orders? The chairman is under a gag order. Let's cover a couple of things here really quickly if I can. As of 2015, the same organization declared that shift work that involves circadian disruption, sleep disruption, occupational exposure as a hairdresser or a barber, hot beverages, and red meat are probably carcinogenic to humans under IARC Group 2A listing, along with radio signals and apparently at one time bananas. During that same year, by only assessing a possible hazard, rather than risk dose-related or acute chronic toxicity or exposure levels, they decided that benzene was able to cause cancer in humans. Never mind that if you get enough of it in your system, it destroys bone marrow entirely, or causes bone marrow-based cancers like leukemia. It's able to cause cancer. They also said people's potential exposure in a work environment had generally been below recommended daily limits since the 1980s. Benzene is known to cause cancer and other cancers of blood cells from studies in people, animals, and in test tubes. Not just one or the other. You need more than just one. At least you have to find it in animals. Better if you also find a correlation in humans, and if you can have it happen in a test tube, you can then avoid testing it on animals or humans and just try to find a cure for it in a test tube. Most cancers you can't do that with, so you have to do it well, anyway, let's go on. A member of that same IARC benzene review working group also said, "I'm not surprised that left out key findings and focused on the wrong studies." When asked to respond to, "Did you really say that?" he said, "I'm not allowed to respond because I'm under gag order." The World Health Organization allowed its International Agency for Research on Cancer to edit out non-carcinogenic results, unlikely to pose carcinogenic hazard to humans results, and declared Roundup probably carcinogenic to humans in Group 2A, along with drinking coffee, eating red meat, or being a barber or hairdresser, or being exposed to heat. That's actually valid, that last one, technically, but it's very generalized, isn't it? But for some reason, benzene was only able to cause cancer in humans instead of a definitive, it's a cancer causer. The Environmental Protection Agency and European Food Safety Authority tests showed it can cause the following. And remember, you can review their work. They don't put anybody on a gag order, and they don't like it when anybody else does. And I'm going to get to one of those gag-ordered ones in a minute. Serious eye damage if directly exposed to eye tissue. mucous membrane irritation, but eye damage. You can actually get cornea damage. No evidence of interaction with estrogen, androgen, or thyroid activity and pathways. Practically non-toxic to aquatic fauna unless you increase the dosage so high that it starts disrupting, because it's a weed killer, the plant life in the river. No mutagenic effects found at all, unlike using carnivora, which does have mutagenic effects. Carcinogenic effects were found in the following creatures: male mice and rats, not females for some reason, which means it's not universally cancer-causing. And what kind of cancers? It may affect, meaning it found a slight change in behavior, not up or down, just a change, in renal tubal carcinoma, pancreatic islet cell adenoma, I can't pronounce it, and hemangosarcoma, I can't pronounce it. Now, pancreas, urinary tract, and other, and it had an effect on cancer, meaning it changed its behavior. Might make it worse or better in your opinion, but it changed its behavior in a tiny portion of the population of rats and mice. Actual effects on humans and animals detected. By the way, the human studies showed no correlation or causation of any kind. Period. Full stop. So apparently mice and rats that are extremely susceptible to cancers had a change in cancer behavior, but not necessarily killing them. And again, oh, by the way, who did that study? Monsanto did it. They accepted it from Monsanto if it says something bad, but they rejected the other stuff in it. No, it couldn't have been Monsanto actually publishing that technically you could find a cancer-causing effect in a specific type of cancers, in specific male-only rats, because the females had no effect. Meanwhile, Venus flytrap-based carnivora can cause you to abort a fetus. But we don't discuss that, because it's natural. Effects if you actually use the stuff, and you'll know it immediately. Initial excitability, tachycardia, ataxia, depression, bradycardia. Severe toxicity can develop into collapsing convulsions. What did the IARC Monograph note about glyphosate-based formulations? It can cause DNA strand breaks in various taxi of animals, meaning they wouldn't specify what kind of animals, in vitro. Trying not to quote Monsanto. Fine. DNA strand breaks from something that kills weeds by destroying the protein chains. National and international agencies reviewing glyphosate, the vast majority of them said that there's no cause and effect or anything, and you can review all their work. On the other hand, the World Health Organization subgrouping IARC monographs are published, and you cannot review their work. You can't review their methodology, and when someone whistleblows, they always say it's Big Pharma or whatever attacking them. This is also the same group that let a person on their group that absolutely was convinced that cell phones cause cancer to get cellular phones declared as a possible carcinogen by just lobbying. Why did they use animal studies only? Because the human studies showed no correlation or contradicted it, so they just left it out. Their excuse was some of them, or all of them, were not producing their data. I've checked, they did. I can find the data, you couldn't? Okay. We do not encourage our participants to retain working drafts or reveal our information. We don't like it when people ask us to justify this scientific position through science. Outside observers are selected and allowed to witness the proceedings, but they're banned from talking about what goes on. And that's the group we're supposed to trust. I'm going to include a link to their response to the criticism they've received from other sources, and my favorite thing is them editing that particular study about animals to say the opposite of what it said originally. It's an overt cut and paste. They just edited out the facts. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.